Before today's guest became a popular broadcaster for the New York Knicks, he was a high-scoring defensive whiz. Think about that, a high-scoring defensive whiz who was arguably the franchise's greatest all-time player. He was definitely its coolest. In fact, back in 1974, he wrote a book called Rockin' Steady, A Guide to Basketball and Cool. Now that classic book has been reissued, and Mr. Cool, or Clyde as he's affectionately known, is here to talk about it. I welcome back my friend, the Hall of Famer for the New York Knicks, Walt Frazier. How are you, Walter?
Fine, Jim. Good to see you again.
Good seeing you, too. How did you get into the words? I mean, you used to carry a dictionary around with you all the time, right?
Yeah. When I first started, I was always trying to improve. I felt intimidated because normally I'm a jovial guy. I like to have a lot of fun, but I wasn't relaxed because I thought they would ask me something and I couldn't articulate it in time. And, you know, radio is different from TV. There's nuances. The play-by-play guy does all the talking. So usually he'd be saying something, he'd go, "Right, Walt?" And I go, "Right." That's about all I could get in. So I was getting bored with that job. So I started with the words, and then by knowing words, obviously you can rhyme. So when I came into the game, they had dishing, and I added swishing. So if the Knicks were doing something and I had just a little time to say something, I go, "Yeah, they're dishing and swishing. You know, they're penetrating, creating." And I started to have fun, and I started to loosen up because I knew that no matter what they asked me, I could come up with something concise and profound at the same time.
And I would imagine kids picked up on this too.
Oh yeah.
They started liking to listen to you. And what better way for young kids to get into the word business, or that why words are so much fun to use, than listening to you having fun like that?
I know, and some of the parents tell me their kids are using the words, not correctly, but they're using them from hearing me.
That's how you start out. I mean,
right. That's how I started. At first, I was misusing words, and they used to lambast me in the papers.
Well, we all have our critics about things like that.
You're the only guy that doesn't. Everybody loves you, man. You're the man. You're the man.
You haven't read all my mail. 4 decades ago, it was Walt Frazier and Willis Reed and Bill Bradley and guys like that. And we're going to talk about that with Walt right after this. Walt Frazier was a prolific scorer, but he's equally known for being a 7-time all-defensive team guard with hands, as one opponent said, that were faster than a lizard's tongue. You got to love that. You not only took pride in defense, you raised the stature of defense, because prior to that, I mean, the Knicks in those days were a defensive team, but Bill Russell really was the guy who defined defense until the Knicks in 79 and 69, 70 came along.
Yeah, that's true. Russell was a dominant guy, but he was a shot blocker. So people had not seen a player just actually take the ball from a professional player. You know, you could do it in the passing lane, but I used to just strip guys while they were dribbling. And as you alluded to, in college, my coach was very strict on defense. So I perfected the stance, which is the main thing: butt down, head up, see the ball, see your man. I used the sideline, the baseline, the timeline as an extra man to hem guys in on the court.
You attended Southern Illinois in Carbondale, Illinois, and because of academics, you missed a year. It was almost the same thing as being redshirted, right?
Right. But as a punishment, the coach made me play defense every day.
With 4 other scrubs, as you said, right? And that really gave you your whole definition of defense.
Right. I started to take a lot of pride in how I got back at the coach. I would create so much havoc. He'd have to say, "Hey, Frazier, sit down." They couldn't run any plays. I'd be talking trash. And I love defense. You know, when I came into the league, I had a defensive reputation because I used to guard Oscar Robertson, Jerry West, Earl Pearl, when those guys were hot. And albeit I still averaged 20 points a game, but I think my favorite part of the game was defense. I liked to especially play on the road and shut up the crowd. You know, especially when I played in L.A., all the movie stars be saying, "Get Frazier off of him, get Frazier off of West." You know, I'd be all over this guy. So,
and you talked about how defense can be so demoralizing to an offense. I mean, even one steal that can, like your steal against Jerry West in Game 7, the famous Game 7 where Willis Reed made his appearance, and yet you may have had the greatest game of your career.
Right, I did, and I remember I had 4 steals, and I knew one was from Elgin Baylor, one was from West. I can remember that like yesterday. But the one I stole from West demoralized the Lakers because now it was like, man, our leader is losing the ball. So you could see the guys, you could look in their eyes and tell they lost their focus, and that was enough for us to get the lead, and we never relinquished that lead.
You think about your life, Walt. I mean, when you were 10 and 11 years old, you grew up on a lot. That's how you learned to play basketball, on a lot in Atlanta. And you used to take such pride in your shoes by scrubbing your shoes the night before and letting them dry and then wearing them out the next day. And if it had rained on that lot, I mean, can you remember dribbling on that lot?
Oh, yeah, because, you know, on dirt you have soil erosion if you get so much rain.
Yeah.
And then the rocks start to protrude. And little did I know that was helping me prepare for the NBA because you had to focus more on your dribbling, get lower to control the ball. So it was great for my dribbling techniques. And also when I was guarding other guys, like when we played, the floors were very flexible because they were old and they were portable. So they had a lot of dead spots. So at the Garden, I knew where those dead spots were, and I would force guys in that area, knowing that when they got in a certain area, man, that ball was going to die. It was not coming up, and that's how I made a lot of my steals.
I have never heard that before. Where were some of the dead spots, for instance, in the old Garden?
Usually around the free throw line, the half-court line. But it's like in baseball, you know, if teams are fast, they have high infield grass.
That's right.
And different
That's
techniques to try to help their home court advantage. And that was the one that I used to my advantage, the flexible floor.
Boy, that is fascinating. Never heard that. And you're going to hear more from Clyde right after this. We'll be right back. I'm back with Walt Clyde Frazier, who scored. We talked about that Game 7, which was probably it was the most important basketball game in the history of New York City. I mean, and you played in it, and you led the scoring with 36 points and 19 assists in that game. Take us back to that night, because New York basketball fans can't get enough of that game.
Well, they thought it was premeditated that we knew Willis Reed was coming out when he did, but we didn't. So when we left the locker room, Holtzman told us
Red
whether
Holtzman,
Willis,
your coach?
our coach told us whether Willis play or not. We had to, so he closed the door to the training room where Willis was. So when we went out on the court, we had no idea Willis would play. So we were just as flabbergasted as everybody else when we heard this roar go up. And I saw Willis limping out on the floor. And I'll never forget, I saw Baylor, I saw Chamberlain, I saw West, 3 of the greatest players that ever played a game. They became mesmerized. They stopped doing what they were doing and was standing there staring at Willis. And at that point, I said to myself, man, we got these guys.
You felt it.
Yeah, it gave me so much confidence to see that.
It was Willis's left knee, I believe?
Yeah.
Right, left knee. That was the problem.
And then the crowd, they never shut up after that. You know, so they really galvanized us. And I had unequivocally the greatest game in my career, 36 points, 19 assists, 7 rebounds, 4 steals. I sold popcorn at halftime. I was like doing it all in that game.
Yeah, so it really wasn't as much of a physical lift that it gave your team and against the Lakers, but it was the psychological lift that it, that it gave.
The emotional, the adrenaline that he provided from the fans. And as fate would have it, he makes his first 2 shots. He made the first one, and he made the second one. I go, this guy's been holding out on us. You know, he's been faking it. He can play. So and those are the only 2 baskets he made the entire game. But that set the tempo. that gave us the confidence. The crowd they were in a frenzy after that, and I just fed on it. The ironic part about that was when I left the locker room, Holtzman told me to hit the open man. But as the game progressed, I was the open man. Every time I came over the screen, I was wide open. And my stats were incredible. I remember I was 12 of 17 from the field, 12 of 12 from the free throw line.
My gosh.
So
and the 19 assists and the 5 steals.
Right.
Right? I mean,
Yeah.
and you're playing against some of the greatest basketball players ever in the history of the game.
I mentioned Jerry West, Chamberlain, Elgin Baylor. So you don't get better. I remember as a rookie, I saw Elgin Baylor walking. That's when the Garden was on, 48th Street? Yeah, I followed in his footsteps. I walked behind him. Yeah, he was going to the hotel. And I told him that he didn't
know
believe
that?
it. Yeah,
Did
it was a true story though. Yeah, because I admired him so much.
Well, you also admired Red Holtzman too, who really gave you a chance in that first year, right?
Yeah.
The second half of your first year.
Right. He instilled a lot of confidence in me. And the main thing he did was he came in with the philosophy of defense, which was my forte. And he told me that, he was going to give me more playing time, show some confidence out there, and just play the way I did in college. He saw me play in college. So
why do you think defense was ignored to a great degree in those days in basketball? Because it certainly wasn't ignored in football. It never has been ignored in baseball, and I guess the equivalent of that in hockey has always been true. Why was it ignored in basketball?
Well, because it's the glamour. People like
Running
a guy
gun.
like Chamberlain who got more notoriety than a guy like Russell.
That's right.
Chamberlain was offensive oriented, Russell was defensive oriented, but the glamour was with the scoring. Everybody was fascinated by the scoring.
Until Bill Russell came along.
Right, with the dominant defense and having a combination of offense and defense.
And Bill, I guess from what I understand, he was such a friend to almost everybody, teammate and opponent alike. At least that's what I've heard about.
No, he was nasty on the court.
Right. But off the court,
yeah, he was a nice guy.
He was a sweetheart.
But the Celtics, they were these older guys, and they used to wear the black sneakers, which made them look like from the Stone Age. So, they wore these knee pads. They could rarely come out on the court, and then they beat you by 50 points.
I've never thought about that, but I mean, that makes so much sense.
Yeah, like before they toss the ball up, they're going, "Oh, Clyde, how's the family? How's the wife?" They're giving you all this stuff, and then they come out and kill you. You're feeling sorry for these guys, the way they look.
We'll be back with more from Walt Clyde Frazier right after this. Walt Frazier coined and is continuing to coin such rhyming phrases as dishing and swishing, duping and hooping, posting and toasting, using, abusing, and all of those things can be found in this book being reissued. And you think about, we talked about Bill Russell, who did the introduction, Walter Yost, one of the great sports photographers in the history of sports photography, and Ira Burkow, who wrote this book or who helped write this book. You wrote the book, of course, but President Obama bought this book when he was 12 years old. Is that a fact?
Yeah. Ira was at a baseball game, I guess, in Washington, and he was in the same booth as Obama. And Obama and Ira mentioned that we were doing the book, and he goes, "Oh yeah, when I was 12 years old, I read the book." So
that's not too shabby. Why'd you elect to reissue the book?
Well, Triumph Books thought it'd be a good idea to bring it back. It was such a classical book. I mean, there was still a demand for this book. So people were looking for it on the internet, and I was just delighted to do it because this was my philosophy when I was 29 years old back in 1974, and I'm astounded that I was not only into fashion like I am now, but health and fitness I was one of the first guys in basketball who really lifted weights to try to improve their shooting and strength, because a lot of guys thought if you got too strong, it would affect your shot.
Become too bulky?
Yeah, but my trainer told me it's okay if you stretch afterwards. Keep your muscles pliable, not like football guys where they bulk up. So then I was fortunate enough to be in New York City, the Mecca. I was the first guy to endorse a sneaker, basketball sneaker, the Puma Clydes, which I'm still
They're still
affiliated.
around, right?
Yeah, my name is still on, and I've been with that shoe maybe 40 years. But my discipline with diet and exercise, health and fitness, which everyone is doing now, but in those days, not too many people were into taking the vitamins and really watching and working out. In the summer, like I never played basketball. I used to run, I used to lift weights, and my philosophy was I kind of denied myself basketball. So when September came around, the time to go to training camp, I couldn't wait to get a basketball in my hand. I was so tired of lifting weights, so tired of jogging that I just wanted to play basketball. See, now everybody, I mean, they have a strength coach, they have dietitians to help the players along with that. But when we played, there were very little knowledge about health and fitness. You know, they pretty much left it up to you. When you came to training camp, I'm sure the same thing in baseball.
Absolutely.
They expected you to be in shape.
And that type shape had everything to do with stretching and not lifting and not strength. No such thing as even isometrics in those days.
Right. See, and I was one of the first guys to do yoga. I started yoga in 19. I used to say yoga. They say yogurt. No, yoga. So the stretching, the flexibility, which helps to minimize the injuries. I knew how to tape my own ankles. So I was well prepared. And at Southern Illinois, we had a trainer called Doc Spackman, the guy who invented isometric exercises. Really? So this was the guy I went to, and he put me on the different programs to try to improve my strength.
Do you still do yoga?
Oh, yeah, every day.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh,
I find it very relaxing, and the circulation. And like you, I mean, you have the secret. You're very fit now.
I try to take care of myself, and I do yoga. By the way, I mean, here are two guys who do yoga on the same set. Might be a record. I'll tell you what is a record. Your classic ads with Keith Hernandez in the Just for Men stuff with the beard. And
I was asked by the guys today, do I use it? I do.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you know, men are not like women. They're not going to go somewhere where it takes an hour or something to do something.
That's right.
So it is very fast. Like 5 minutes, you can put it on in 5 minutes and you're done.
And from what you've told me, you're doing a new group of spots with Randy Johnson.
Yeah,
right?
We just brought in Randy Johnson. First, Keith and I were the first two guys, so that lasted maybe 5 years.
They're great spots. I mean, they're fabulous.
I know, they were classic. I mean, the rhyming, no play for Mr. Gray. And so then we brought in Emmitt Smith, and now we brought in Randy Johnson.
Oh, that's just great. Well, you are as your dress shows today, you were cool in 1970, 80, 90, and you still are today. We've talked about how Walt Clyde Frazier is the cool guy, was then, is now. But also now, because you plant trees in St. Croix. What a Renaissance man you are. In different decades, you're called the tree guy, right?
Yeah. I moved to St. Croix like in 1980. I was kind of fed up with New York and the hustle and bustle, so I went there. Got into sailing, jogging, tennis, horseback riding, and I love the indigenous plants, the hibiscus, crotons, the Christmas palm, so all of these trees, and then they have the fruit trees, the mango trees and all of that, so I started gardening, and now I have a couple of acres of garden with all the indigenous trees and plants.
What is the difference between the Walt Frazier who lives in St. Croix and the Walt Frazier who lives in New York?
In St. Croix, I only wear shorts and T-shirts. I usually have guys helping me. Sometimes they go, "Hey, man, I saw you on TV. You were all dressed up." I go, "Yeah, sometimes I wear a suit up there, you know." So I don't really tell them what my image is and all of that. So it's my way of It's the opposite of New York. I tell people I go to St. Croix to rejuvenate myself, and I come back and deal with the stress of New York.
I have really enjoyed talking to you, as I always have.
Yeah, I hope it's not 8 years again like the last time.
I hope so too. Walt Frazier has been my guest. I'm Tim McCarver. See you next time.